Hey everyone, this is Vern again here with TaxCore. And today I want to talk with you about a question that I've gotten a few times throughout my private practice. And that is what to do if the IRS shows up at your door. So first, in order to explain to you what to do, let me explain to you how revenue officers are trained. As a lot of you know, I was a revenue officer for almost 10 years for the Internal Revenue Service. I trained in Dallas, Texas over about a 12 to 14 week period, and then several summers where we would go back for a week or there or so. I probably have about 12, 1,300 formal hours of training as a revenue officer. And so let me break it down for you how they will approach you and what they're looking for at that first contact. So they're trained to control the conversation and to dominate you in an interview or at that first interaction. Now, that doesn't mean dominate as in to try to scare you or intimidate you, because that's no longer allowed. That was outlawed a long time ago in 1998 under RRA 98, which is a technical code that Congress passed a law basically telling the IRS to try to be nicer to people. But they still teach us to be dominating and not to take no for an answer. So when they approach you, they're going to ask you some basic questions. Are you the taxpayer? Can you full pay the liability, which is X amount? If you can't do that, then they're going to start digging into how much money do you have? Do you own your property? Do you own a car? Do you have any access to any money that you can use to take care of this bill now? They're not going to want to listen to excuses. They don't care if you've got kids in college. They don't care if your job was taken from you. They don't care if your business has failed. They care to the extent that they are there to protect the government's interest. And the government's interest is to collect the tax. And at this point, when a revenue officer has gotten involved, many things has already happened. You sent in a tax return, or they've created one for you. If you don't know what the creation of a tax return is, look at one of our videos on our channel that talks about substitute for returns or 6020B for businesses, and I'll explain all about those two processes in those videos. You filed a tax return, you said you owe, or they created one for you. They've sent you some bills. They probably called you a few times through the automated collection service, and when all those efforts have failed, they show up at your door. So they're there for one thing and one thing only: to either get a check from you that day or find out how they can collect that money in the fastest and most efficient manner possible for the government. So one of the things that's probably going to happen is they're going to call you in for an interview at their office, and they're going to try to collect as much financial information from you as possible. They're going to dominate the conversation. They're going to ask you close-ended questions in the beginning, and then they're going to drift into maybe some open-ended questions to try to get you to loosen up a little bit about your assets and where they are and what you actually control. Um, they're not going to let you set the timeline for anything. They're not going to let you say, well, it's going to take me about 2 or 3 months to get that. No, they're not listening to that. You're usually going to get anywhere between 14 to 30 days to turn in some documents. Now, if it's a tax return and it's been a long time and they realize that maybe you lost the information or you didn't get everything, they may give you 30 days. Typically, it's going to be a 14-day deadline. And at the end of that 14 days, they're going to slam you with any type of action that they deem necessary to get you to comply with either paying the liability or turning in a tax return or submitting some type of documentation to help them close their case. So they're trained to be, they're type A personalities. They don't look for people who will buy a sob story, who will just take excuses or let the taxpayer drag out the investigation. They want people who are going to get in there, grab you by the shoulders, and shake you up and say, listen, I need to get this resolved today. So these are very strong personality driven type people. Now, let me tell you some things not to say to the IRS when they show up at your door. Don't tell them that they're wrong and you've already paid this bill, or that you've mailed in a tax return and you just don't have a copy of it, so that's not my problem. When a taxpayer told me that when I was at the service, I would promptly just look at them and say, okay, so you're just wanting to be disagreeable. Okay. And I turn around and I'm going to do what I have to do to get that tax return, whether it's creating one for you or just going straight to the bank and locking up your assets, because you've demonstrated to me that you are going to be a disagreeable and contentious taxpayer. You don't want to give the revenue officer the impression that you're going to be uncooperative. Now, being cooperative doesn't mean just throwing up your hands and giving them everything that they ask for at the very moment they show up at your door and shaking up and just throwing your lives into turmoil. That means be polite, be professional, and just say, listen, I'm going to need a few days to get this together. Let them give you whatever information that they're going to give you. 9 times out of 10, they're going to give you a form 9297, which is a document where they have to detail everything they want from you, whether it's a tax return, whether it's a federal tax deposit or estimated tax payment, whether it's a collection information statement supporting information and documentation, or a check for something that you failed to pay. They're going to put that on the form 9297. They have to give that to you along with some publications. Publication 1, Taxpayer Rights. Publication 594, which is the collection process. They have to put these things in your hand and allow you at least a fair amount of time to submit that information. You should take it from them and promptly call someone to help you represent your rights. If this is not something that you can handle on your own, if this has hit you out of the blue and you didn't realize you owed this much money, or you were so far behind on some tax returns, or you've had a contentious issue with the IRS and you've been trying to resolve it, you're mailing documentation and you're calling them on the phone and they're just not listening. When they send a revenue officer out to your house, let me tell you something, that is the last person that you're going to be able to deal with before things get really ugly. And a revenue officer has all kinds of power. Revenue officers are actually law enforcement officers, and they're not law enforcement officers with the respect that they carry a gun or wear a bulletproof vest and carry radios like police officers, but they're law enforcement officers. If you threaten them, if you give the impression that you're going to threaten them, you can be put in jail. If you harm them in any way, if you stop them from leaving your property, you can be put in jail. These people are serious. They have full authority of the IRS to do whatever they deem necessary to get this information or to get this tax paid. So you don't want to fool with them, but you don't want to allow them to run you over. So if you've got an issue that you feel like you just can't handle, like it's a simple, yeah, I thought I did turn in a tax return, let me go get a copy of it out of our filing cabinet, and you give it to them, and that's all they want, you're clean. But if it's something deeper, take the information, be polite and professional, smile, take it from them, and then get someone to represent your interests. Because I'm going to tell you, if you give them the impression that you're not going to be cooperative, if you have a balance due, if you owe some money, the revenue officer can, in certain instances, leave your business or your home and go straight to your bank and write out a levy and leave it at the bank, and all of your money will be locked up. You won't be able to withdraw a dime unless you have more in the bank than what you owe in the tax return. If you owe them $20,000 and you got 50 grand in the bank, you can access $30,000. The other 20 is theirs. That's the way it works. If they've not filed a lien on your property yet, and they come out to your home or your business and they tell you you owe $28,000, and if you don't turn in this information within a certain amount of time, they're going to file a notice of federal tax lien against you. And you start talking about, well, I've got property, but I can just transfer it or I can just sell it off before you get the chance to do anything. I have left taxpayers' businesses and driven straight to the county courthouse and written out a notice of federal tax lien and locked up their property that very same day. So don't be disagreeable with these people. They're there to do their job, but you have rights. They're all enumerated on publication 1. They're there. You have the right to fair and equitable treatment. You have the right to representation. We here at Tax Corp know how to deal with revenue officers because I was a revenue officer. I know how they think, I know what they do, and I know how they're going to try to get to you quickest to get that tax return, get that financial information, or get that money. You need to call someone if you have a contentious issue with them. You need to get representation. You do not want to face these people alone because they don't play fair. They will do whatever they got to do to protect the government's interest within the law. And if you don't understand the law, it's going to feel like they're treating you unfairly, but they're only doing their job. I'm not being an advocate for revenue officers. I'm giving you the sound advice because I've been on both sides of the table, and I'm telling you, you don't want to trifle with these people because they will lock up your money and make your life a living hell until you comply. So if you need help in this kind of area, please feel free to give us a call here at Tax Corp. Our website is here on the screen at www.taxcorpllc.com. You can also email us at info@taxcorpllc.com. Subscribe to our channel. Shoot us some questions if you have any needs or concerns. We'll be glad to help you out. And also, please like our page. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.